Welcome everyone back to Beat the Game. It's Steve. It's time to play the game with another edition of Beyond the Precon. And today we're going to Asgard for the mighty Thor, God of Thunder, the Thunder God. All right, and super excited for the next Love and Thunder too. That's going to be an awesome film. All right, so before we go any further, if you guys like these videos, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And for God's sake, leave some comments. Tell me what you think about this character. You know, what was your first impressions of the character and how the character has evolved for you. If you haven't bought this character yet, is this a video that, you know, might have changed your mind about this character and you might, maybe I am going to get Thor after all. All right, so Thor Odinson. So he has a recovery of 4, a hand size of 5. What? Hand size of what? 5 hand size? What happened to 6 hand size? Well, there you go. So this was the first controversy with Thor Odinson. He has a hand size of 5 in Alter Ego. Oh my gosh. But he does have 14 massive hit points. And then search your deck. He has an action called Worthy. And when you call the Worthy, you need to extend your arm out and then search the deck and the discard pile for Mjolnir and add it to your hand, and then you shuffle your deck once per round. And then when he flips to hero form, we have Thor, the God of Thunder, Avenger Asgard with 4 hand. What? 4 hand size? Garbage hero. Right away. You think garbage. What kind of hero has 4 hand size? That's deceiving. And 14 hit points. He's got a 1 thwart, 2 attack, 2 defense. And it has this ability called Have at Thee. In response, after you engage a minion, you draw 2 cards, limits once per phase. That means if you get a minion during the encounter phase, that's great because then your hand size goes up to 6. And if you manage to pull one on the hero phase, you can get up to 8 cards or 7 cards because there's cards that get you minions. So that's pretty good. So there's a reason why he starts with a lower hand size, because he's already super powerful. Now there's a big preconception, and I think because he has a hand size of 4, it's like a mental block for a lot of folks when they see this character. It's like, 4 hand size, garbage. No, stop. Take the time to really get to know this character. And let's take a look why this character is so powerful. All right, let's take a look at some of his signature cards and what you want to be doing with them. All right, so the first signature card, obviously, we're going to talk about is Mjolnir, or I call it Mew Mew. And then Mjolnir here is a restricted, and Thor gets +1 attack and the aerial trait. That's right, his hammer makes him fly. So, what do you want to do with this? So, a lot of times, the hammer in your hand with Thor, you want to probably use it as a resource unless you absolutely need that +1 attack or the aerial trait. But using the hammer as a resource and then going down to Alter Ego and getting it back is a great way to build Thor very fast. Then he's got his helmet, which is great. It's an Asgard attack and gives him +5 health, so he goes to 19 health. He's got 2 resource generators called the Gods of Thunder, and those cards give you get to exhaust it only in hero form. It's not like Captain America's super soldier thing. It's hero form, hero resource only, and you exhaust to generate a lightning resource. Obviously, he's the God of Thunder. And then finally, he's got one more upgrade or support card called Asgard. And Asgard is a 3-cost support that says you get +1 hand size. Now, +1 hand size? Yes, in Alter Ego and in hero form. So he becomes a normal hero with a 6/5. But again, it's not a 6/5 because again, if you're an Alter Ego, you'll get a minion, then you get 8. So that's one of the things that you want to think about when you're playing Thor, is you want to get some of these really important upgrades out as quickly as possible. The health one is definitely the Gods of Thunder, priority number 1. Asgard, priority number 2, because it's going to come. And if you can't play it, don't hold on to it. It costs 3. Unless you have a double resource in your opening hand, you don't need it. All right, and then the helmet, obviously, and then the hammer. All these are all super, super solid. So you want to have his stuff. Why? Because Thor comes with 3 great cards. The first one is Defender of the 9 Realms. That is a very powerful event. It says, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until you discard a minion. Put that minion into play, engage with you, and then you remove 3 threat from a scheme. So a little side note on the rules. If you do not find a minion, you do not draw cards and you do not get to remove 3 threat. So you really have to find a minion that comes into play engaged with you. So this is very good. It not only removes 3 threat, it also gets you 2 extra cards. So that is very powerful. So this, you want to be using these on the side schemes or on the main scheme when it becomes problematic. Then you got the 2 lightning strikes. Now the lightning strikes are good, but then you're like, oh, but I only have like 2 lightning resources on the table. So if you're playing your God of Thunders, even if you have a hand size of 4, then you technically have 2 free damage with the lightning strike. And that's super good because if you have the aerial trait, you bypass the tough status cards, which is amazing. And then finally, you got the 3 most powerful attacks, which is the hammer throw, and it's exhaust Mjolnir to deal 8 damage, and then you return Mjolnir to your hand, and this attack gains overkill, so that's pretty good. But you have to exhaust Mjolnir, and you're going to see why it's important later because there's cards in his kit that also exhaust Mjolnir, so you got to be careful for that. All right, and then finally, he's got one little event that says For Asgard. Now, a lot of times what folks will do is if you are an alter ego, what you're going to do is you're going to pay 1, and then you can only use that in alter ego, and you're going to search your deck and discard pile for an Asgard trait. Now, the only cards with the Asgard trait are right here. So the Gods of Thunder, Asgard, this, and his signature ally, which we'll talk about in 1 second, is called Lady Sif. 2 thwart, 2 attack, and after she enters play, you ready Thor or Odinson. So if you're low on health, you can recover twice, or if you want to recover, play her, ready up, and then you can punch. So that is very, very good, and she's a 2 thwart ally. So big strategy here: keep her in play, and then use her at least 2 times before you decide to block for her with her. So Thor has 14 health. Your hit points can recover, so that's very, very important. And then her 2 thwart is more valuable than your the damage that you take. All right, now let's take a look at what he comes with the Precon. All right, guys, so here's what the Precon looks like. All right, so we're introduced to Heimdall. This is probably your main source of threat removal in the game, and it's also a great card to play to go down to alter ego because you will know what's coming and you get to remove the worst of the next 3 cards. So that's really, really good. Yonborn adds extra damage and it's also a weapon, so it works with a couple of extra cards. Hall of Hero is another good reason to go down to alter ego with Thor to draw more cards because you're killing so many minions, so you get to draw more. Hercules and Valkyrie. Hercules is especially for solo play. And unless you have a deck that you want to build to play Hercules. I do play him in a Thor deck, but the cards are not available right now to make him viable if you're just playing with that in the Precon. All right, and then you got Battle Fury, which readies you after you defeat a minion for 1 health. You got Mean Swing, where you can exhaust either Yonborn or your hammer, your Mjolnir, to deal an extra 3 damage, which is cool. Is if you have both in play and you have 2 mean swings, you can get +6 attack. So you can do a basic attack of 9, which is pretty solid. And then you have Get Over Here, which is a great card for multiplayer, but for solo, I normally use it as a stun removal if there's a minion in play and I'm stunned. And then Chase Them Down to remove threat, the 3 double resources, the 2 powers of aggression. You also get Valkyrie, who comes in, and if you play with her with a lightning, and we saw that we have lightning resources available, that deals 3 damage or 2 damage, which is great. You got an Avengers Mansion, and you got Invulnerability, which gives you a tough status card. Now, this is how the deck wants to get played when you're playing this. And when you look at this, you're like, oh man, I want to go all in on damage. And that is kind of where the trap lies. You can do a lot of damage really fast. So against a scenario like standard Rhino, you should be okay. You'll probably be able to rush the villain down. But if you're challenging yourself to a more challenging scenario, that strategy might not work too well. Like it might work one out of like 3 or 4 games, and then you'll be like, oh well, Thor sucks because he only has a hand size of 4, blah blah blah. But if you are patient and you build Thor up a little bit, he becomes almost invincible. Like I've very rarely lost in solo with Thor. I've even played a game where I play a scenario with absolutely no minions. Like there is no minions, not in the scenario, not in the villain's kit, and I still was able. And I played him in protection as well, which is like the hardest thing to remove threat. So there is a lot of ways to play Thor differently, and how this deck kind of wants to play out is there's kind of 2 avenues that you can go. You can go the mean swing route, where basically you're just attacking with massive damage using the physical resources and trigger Yonborn to deal even more damage, which just exhausts everything. There's also another way to play where you can have a little bit more fun and build Thor up, like with his Gods of Thunder, and go the lightning strike route and then putting a bunch of minions in front of you and then just wiping everything clean with the lightning strikes. So there's a couple of ways to do it. Just remember, if you do a lightning strike, it is not an attack, so you cannot chase them down after you defeat a minion with that. So just little side note there. Okay, so that is kind of how you want to play the deck with Thor. I prefer to play him more passive aggressive, where I will use Thor to defend. I'll take a few hits, but then I'll use my allies like Heimdall and like Valkyrie to remove and remove the threat. And then I'll flip down and I'll use Mjolnir as a resource for the first couple of turns to try to build up my board a lot faster. Now, the great thing about Mjolnir is I can always get it back. There you go. So that's my strategy for playing the Precon. Now let's see how we upgrade this Precon from just the base state using just the core sets. All right, so let's start by upgrading this Precon. All right, so the first thing I would remove if I'm playing in solo play, but definitely keep it if you're playing multiplayer. But if you're playing solo play, I would remove the 3 Get Over Here's. They're a great card, but it's more for multiplayer purposes to draw some more cards. So that's why I would take it out. And I would replace it with 3 Relentless Assaults. It's just easy to trigger with Battle Fury and stuff like that. I think it's just better. The other one, again, depending on the scenario I'm playing, I will get rid of Hercules, and I will recommend putting in Hulk. Hercules could be free, but Hulk is always 2, and he's a very strong blocker. There you go. All right, the next thing I would recommend to get rid of is the Chase Them Downs. One thing is because I have Hulk, so getting rid of those 2 Chase Them Downs, and it's not hard. What I would add is I would add a combat training, obviously, to get a +1 hand size to get to 4 attack. So that's pretty solid in its own. And then I would add a Mockingbird as another ally. All right, so adding Mockingbird will stun, because Thor is really good at taking minion hits, like 1 or 2. But when he gets hit by 5 or 6 by the boss, then it just slows down what he really wants to be doing, which is punching. All right, the next card I think I would recommend to remove is 2 Invulnerabilities. There are physical resources, so let's try to replace it with some more physical resources. The first one I would add is a Helicarrier. Again, Thor has a lot of ways to draw cards, so putting those Helicarriers and making all his cards cheaper is a fantastic way. The other one I would recommend to put in is a Tag Team. That's just good if you have minions with tough, or if you have the boss gets a tough status card and then you're like, oh no, my hammer throw is just going to get wasted. So I think Tag Team is good, and then you can combine it, use the Tag Team when you absolutely need it, and then you can hammer swing, or you can just punch with with a mean swing and then make enough damage to take out the minion and then trigger Hall of Heroes. Now, for those of you who really, really absolutely hate invulnerability, you can replace it with a Nick Fury. But yeah, I would keep in one invulnerability. But if you really like Nick Fury, just replace the third invulnerability, or replace a Battle Fury if you want to keep one of those invulnerabilities there. So there you go. So that is my recommendation if you're going to be playing, upgrade this Precon. And this is very, very solid deck. And you could pretty much take out pretty much any scenario with this type of build. All right, guys, here's a little deck suggestion here for Thor in Leadership. And the reason why I like Leadership with him is because of Vision. Now, Vision has that action where you can spend a lightning resource and give him +2 to one of his base powers. And with Thor and his Gods of Thunder, you're always sure to be able to trigger that ability, which is huge. All right, so this is what I would suggest. It's 1, 2, 3 double resources, 2 powers of. We have a Helicarrier and a Triskelion as supports. We have the 3 emergencies because we want to stay down probably 1 or 2 turns. And this is going to allow us to stay down. We got 3 get readies, which is going to help us, ready our allies to do more stuff. We have 3 first aids. The reason why we're going to want to heal up Vision a lot because we're going to want to use and abuse him. So we want to make sure we can heal him so he's not just sitting down idly. We have Heimdall as well because he'll be able to, tell us what's coming. So to know if it's safe to stay in Alter Ego. And then we have Inspireds on both of these guys. Why? Because he becomes a 2/3 or maybe a 4/5. And then he becomes a 3/4. So we can decide what we want to do with them if we want to, control threat, or if we are in the end game and we're almost killing the boss, count our damage and just go in for kill. So that's a great opportunity. Then we have Hawkeye who can, loosen up some minions and still give us our card draw and we don't have to take care of them. Great. Maria Hill to draw some cards and to thwart for 2. Teamwork, which is a bonus card that comes from his hero kit, and it says when you use one of your basic powers, you can add one ally's power by exhausting him. So let's say Heimdall only has 1 health left and I don't want to lose him. Well, I can, thwart for 1 and add, if he's got 2, add 2 or 3. So I could thwart for 4, or I can attack for 3 + 4. I can attack for 7 using the teamwork card. So I think it's super good. It's a great way to use our allies without, having them take consequential damage. Again, combo with Vision and Teamwork is super good, and some get readies. Some really, really fun interactions that we can find just using the Precon in Leadership. All right, so now without further ado, let's go look at some of the hero packs that really, really bring Thor to the next level. All right, guys, here are my top 3 recommendations for Thor to aggression to really beef him up. My first hero pack, and she's coming back for a second round, is Wasp, right? Why? Because Wasp gives us the Into the Fray card, which kills minions and removes main threat. So that is such a good, and it's also a lightning resource, which is Amazeballs. It gives us also the Quinn Carrier, which is also a resource generator. It gives us the Power in All of Us that pays for, it's a double for great cards, which is great. And also gives us 2 really fun allies. It gives us Wasp, who is triggered by lightning resource, which I think is great. And then Thor, Jane Foster, which is cool because it's thematic because it is an Asgard ally. So these 5 cards, obviously there's Ironheart and Miles Morales, Spider-Man, but thematically to Thor, I think these are the ones that make the most sense for the Wasp hero pack. So those are really, really strong cards in the Wasp pack that really, really increase Thor's abilities. The other one, it was kind of toss-up between, I wasn't sure if I want to say Wasp again or that one, but it is Rocket Raccoon. And the reason why I like the Guardians of the Galaxy box for Rocket Raccoon is it introduces us to Looking for Trouble, which is another type of Defender of the Nine Realms, except it only removes threat from the main, and it searches for a minion. So it helps Thor get into his How About Thee ability, which is great. It also gives us, you know, if you don't want to buy Wasp, you don't like Wasp for any reason, and you prefer Rocket Raccoon, I know Brant does, you would probably, you'll still get Into the Fray, which is great. And then it also goes with the Overkill synergy, which gives you access to follow-throughs, which means you can remove even more threat from the main scheme with the Into the Frays and deal even more damage with Overkill. And it's a pretty cool ally with Bug because you're going to want to attack, you're going to be able to heal Bug, and so he's basically kind of like a constant ally. So those are my the top cards if you're going to buy the Guardians of the Galaxy box. You also get Groot, which is great and has some awesome protection cards. And then finally, even though it is my least favorite character in the game, Valkyrie Pack also introduces some fun thematic Thor cards. First one is Angela, which allows you to fetch for a minion. We have Throg, who, if you have a minion, comes in with a tough status card. We have the Bifrost that allows us to search for a Asgard ally by paying its cost. And then finally we have something called Godlike Stamina, which removes a negative status card and heals us for 2. So it's a free first aid for, which is great for our Asgard characters. So I think it's really, really fun. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of Valkyrie. I really didn't enjoy her design, but she did come in with some nice cards for this. And then finally, an honorable mention to Drax. Even though he doesn't bring a lot of cards for aggression, he does bring Bring It, which is a phenomenal card with no cap, by the way. So you draw a card for each minion engaged with you. So if you want to kind of see what Bring It can do, I recommend that you go take a look at my playlist into the achievements. It's called Party Thor versus Infinity Gauntlet Ultron. And if you have never seen Thor with like 16, 17 cards in hand, it's just dumb and it's so powerful. So there you go. But it does require more than the 3 packs that I suggested. But that Party Thor video was just off the chains good. So guys, all in all, Thor is a very, very fun character. He's one of my most played characters. I enjoy every time I bring him to the table. I always have a good time. The one thing I would say, when you play Thor, try to find a scenario with at least 5-6 minions. If you can go more than 5-6, like if you put the Band of Badoons or the Mutagen formula, you're going to have a great time with Thor. If you're playing a scenario with only like 1 or 2 minions, you might find it a little bit more frustrating. But again, the game has such versatility, has such ways to play in combination between the modular sets. Just because you play a scenario, you don't have to play Thor if you're going to play a scenario with no minions. It's going to make it more difficult. Again, it can be done. I've done it before. But again, your experience with the Thor hero is not going to be the same. So there you go. So that is my 2 cents on that, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Thor video Beyond the Precon. I want you to try them out. Like I said, focus on building. Don't go too much in on damage in the beginning unless you're playing a scenario that needs to end quickly. But because he has definitely the power to end the scenario quickly. 1 or 2 lightning hammer throws and boom, you're done. And then the scenario is already won, so that's a way to go. But I prefer Thor building him up a little bit and then doing some massive, massive damage turns. So that is the way I like to play him. But again, you will have your own way and you'll find that out because you'll be able to play the game, and using some of these strategies, you'll be able to beat the game. Ciao, ciao, and see you next time.